Climify is independent of climate designers. The views expressed on Climify are solely those of the host, Eric Benson, and guests of each episode, and do not represent the views of the climate designers. Let's be real. The status quo has created a lot of the world's problems, and we can't rely on business as usual to get us out of this mess we're in. That's why we're partnering with Think NATO this season. It's a dead simple 4-step process to blow open conventional thinking and get to truly unique and innovative ideas. It's not about finding the perfect answer. It's about starting with the right questions, pushing the edges, and then taking action. You can learn more about Think NATO at thinknato.com. That's ThinkNADO.com. Think NATO, the positive action engine. Hey, this is Eric. Welcome to another episode of Climify. I especially enjoyed the conversation we have for you today, as I've had a chance to really get to know our guest, Cynthia Leung, through the Climate Wisdom Fellowship we are both a part of. In the first Climate Wisdom small group call, I was paired up with Cynthia, and after learning from her during that hour, I reached out over LinkedIn and invited her as a guest on this optimistic season of Climify. Cynthia is thoughtful and thought-provoking in her words, not only in this interview, but also during our prior conversations. In this interview, she made me realize how important I already am in the world and why what we all do create impact that matters. I was moved by her story and how she handles adversity with grace, vulnerability, and logic. I wish I could be more like her. I honestly feel many of you will too. Who is Cynthia Leung? Well, Cynthia has 15 years of experience developing and scaling solutions in the energy sector, spanning energy efficiency, utility scale solar development, and mobile battery storage. Most recently, she led strategic partnerships at Moxion, securing the company's first $1 million in rental revenue for battery stations. Previously, she founded a social enterprise deploying battery power stations for remote applications and served as a board member for Twende Solar, a nonprofit dedicated to expanding clean energy access. If that's not enough, she's also worked on the Clinton Foundation's Islands Energy Program with the Clinton Climate Initiative and contributed to the development of over 1 gigawatts. That's 1 gigawatts of utility solar projects at SunPower. Cynthia has over a decade of experience mentoring and training emerging leaders. As a professional mentor, facilitator, and impact coach for the Tech Women program, she has led workshops and talks on sustainability, communication, and mentorship across 4 countries. She has also designed and hosted over a dozen workshops on mentorship and mind mapping. Cynthia has an MS in Sustainability Management from Columbia University and a BA in Quantitative Economics with a minor in Global Sustainability. You can follow Cynthia on Medium or Substack at Where is Cynthia Now? So now is a good time to introduce Cynthia, and I really hope you enjoy my conversation with her. Well, Cynthia, welcome to Climify. I'm really happy to have met you and then been able to invite you to the podcast.
Super excited to be here, Eric, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're one of the few people that I met before I asked you to be on the show. Typically, it's a lot of like cold emails, DMs, LinkedIn messages to people that are like connected somehow to my network, but you're one of the first that I had already met.
Oh, well, I'm honored to be here then. And I have so many more people that could probably provide some optimism as well. So
I'm sure.
excited for the conversation.
Of course, yeah. And I find your work really interesting and important around climate action. And so I'm really intrigued by how you got to where you are and walking down this particular path of climate optimism?
Happy to maybe walk through that journey. So I saw An Inconvenient Truth in 2006 by Vice President Al Gore. I was a high school junior at the time. And I remember my parents were like, we're going to go see a movie tonight about climate change. I was like, what is this? Or actually, it wasn't even called climate change. It was called global warming.
Oh yeah, it was altered to become climate change, right?
Exactly. And arguably, I call it a climate crisis now, not climate change. But we can
Yeah.
go down that branch if we want to. But I remember my journey started 19 years ago when I went to see this movie. And I remember I walked out of that movie theater thinking global warming, climate change is the biggest problem of our time. And I want to do something about it. But I have no idea what. Like, what can a 16, 17-year-old do at this point? But I just knew that that was what I was going to focus my attention towards. And so I, followed the path, went to college. I actually changed my degrees 5 times. So for anyone who's
Hey, I
unsure,
didn't know that.
exactly. So wouldn't recommend it, but also it was part of my own self-discovery. And in the process of figuring out what degree I wanted to do, I asked myself, what am I good at? What excites me? And what do I understand? And what am I passionate about? And I knew that I really liked math. I also really understood economics and was good at that. And I was passionate about sustainability. So I wanted to marry all three into a major. And I ended up majoring in quantitative economics with a minor in global
Wow.
sustainability, which essentially means math econ, and moving it towards sustainability. It's
Sure.
really great for job applications coming out of school to say that
Right.
major, but in essence, it's trying to tie in green business together in one. And part of this climate optimism that we're talking about was while I was in college, I realized I wanted everyone to care about climate change because I thought it was an important issue, and that I hoped that they would do something about it from the goodness of their hearts.
Mhm.
But I also recognize the reality of the world is that people think in terms of money. And so I wanted to speak the language of money to be able to guide the conversation and guide people towards climate solutions that either saved them money or made them money. And
Mhm.
that's when you start to actually move things. And so my whole career has actually been the energy industry. It is the one space that I have found within the sustainability space, ranging from food waste, biodiversity, uh, water conservation, land conservation, that has made the most sense to me from an economic, equitable, and environmental perspective for solutions that can move the needle. Hence my 15-year career in the energy industry, ranging from energy efficiency, utility scale solar development, founding my own company with mobile battery stations, and spending the last 5 years of that working on what the role of mobile battery stations is in energy resilience. But all that goes to say is that this has been the journey I've chosen to find my path to create hope and feasible solutions in climate.
I call it the other green, money. And you're right, it's practical. So I think it's something that can really drive people to make changes, even if they're not on board, we'll say, with sustainability. And I'm guessing you found that in your career.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing too is it's not just about speaking in rational terms of money. This has been the thing I've just like really understood is actually also addressing the irrational value system that like irrational, like the emotional side of people. Because you can tell people that they'll save money or they'll make money. And sometimes they'll still hold it in the back of mind and be like, but it doesn't make sense. So I'm not going to do it. And so even in my career, as I've grown a career built out of the business side of climate, it actually is the human connection and understanding people's values and why they do what they do that has helped me move the needle with other people and stakeholders that I've worked with. So it's actually really interesting to say we should all speak in rational terms of like money. And also, we still need to understand the very human element of our decision making.
Yeah, I like that. That's really important because we're all humans. And so, we need to be able to work with one another and understand what we're doing.
Exactly.
Well, we met actually, I want to go back to that because just so everyone knows, we met a little bit of a pitch for a great program that you and I are both in called the Climate Wisdom Fellowship. And so that was like last month we met there, I'm thinking, or a couple months ago. And how are you finding it so far? Because I'm finding it a lot more emotional than I expected I would.
I love that. And I actually feel similarly. For folks who are listening in, the Climate Wisdom Fellowship is a fellowship that brings together climate leaders who are looking to also do the inner work that really helps us understand our why and for the purpose of being even more effective when it comes to the impact we hope to achieve with our work. And so I'm a big connector. I love many different communities and of the Venn diagram of intersection of myself, what I care about, where I'm going. This has been one of the most aligned communities. And I really love it because, you know, we can only do so much if we haven't addressed our inner demons or inner trauma
Right.
and really like what is holding us back. And I feel like a lot of this community has been peeling away those layers. And so instead of being a workaholic who is, dead set on creating impact, I'm like, oh, I need pause. I need recharge because my soul gets recharged from people, from my time with myself and nature. I'm reminded by my why of what I do with my work. And I think one of the things I've really gotten out of the fellowship is one, the amazing connections, both with you and other fellows in this program who were just like, oh my God, you're doing this too. Like you're on this path also. And also one of my favorite concepts recently that I think it would with the call you and I met, which was the discussions of states of tragic. So we could navigate them more consciously. And so to outline states of tragic, essentially you have pre-tragic, tragic, and post-tragic. And this came from Spencer Honeyman, who is the organizer of this whole fellowship. And I love that he walked us through this, where pre-tragic is from a standpoint of climate change is this problem is too big and I can't do anything about it. So I'm just gonna live my life and I'm gonna ignore it. Right. It's like I'm gonna bury my head in the sand, live my life. I'm apathetic. It's not something that's, that I should care about. Tragic is when you're in it. Like climate change is the worst thing that's gonna happen. I'm sad, I'm in despair. I feel powerless. Like I am just wallowing in the emotions that I'm feeling right now because this is tragic. And post-tragic is when you still understand just the weight of the climate crisis. And you're like, wow, this is going to be really sad and impact so many lives across our planet. And also, I will still like find joy in meeting amazing people like you, Eric, and finding connection and community. Or I'll still like laugh, like I will laugh with my 3-year-old niece who is like cackling from the base of her diaphragm and know that like that is a source of joy in my life. And it's actually probably has been one of my favorite call outs from this fellowship because that's how I've actually talked to a lot of people who are navigating this unknown change and these feelings and being like, I've actually been operating in post tragic for the past 15 years.
I was
I
going to
think I
ask, where
discovered,
are you? Are you post
I
tragic?
know, I've been on post tragic since college. I think in college, I was just like, I hit tragic when I walked out of Inconvenient Truth, and I was like, oh my God, we're look all screwed. And then in college, I was like, all right, well, oh my God, why don't people care? I don't understand why people don't care.
Mhm.
Why don't they care enough? And then at some point, I was like, I can only control what I can control, and I will try and make people care. But I also have to let go when there's times when like the it is just like the efforts are futile
Mhm.
and know that I will count my wins in the right areas where I can create wins and also let go of the things that just aren't quite aligned. And so that maybe in summary, that states of tragic have really resonated with me from just understanding and observing our state of being to then make a choice of what to do about it.
I think I entered post tragic in 2018. And gosh, I'm trying to remember like what led to that specific switch. And maybe it was like I was watching The Walking Dead too much. And then I was like, okay, wait, this is all like overwhelming and I need to have some sort of hope in my life. So I think that was the year that I did it. And so I'm curious for you, like, with this theme, this season on the show, optimism. How are you defining that for yourself? And how are you doing that, like, maybe in your daily life? How are you being optimistic and in your job as well?
Absolutely, and, I love The Walking Dead, I also
Oh,
watched it
good.
religiously. At some point, I was like, "I'm eating dinner while watching zombies." I was like, "This is a little strange
Yeah.
how desensitized I am." And, and all that goes to say, relate by way of, I have actually stopped watching shows that cause me stress because I have enough stress in my life, I
So
don't need
so
to
no
add
Last of
more.
Us for you?
No, okay, I did watch The Last of Us,
Yeah.
great show,
Yeah.
episode 3, like, cinematic, like, just gold. So I do pick and choose the shows I watch because in many ways, if I watch a stressful show right before I sleep, that doesn't help me sleep better. I was like, it makes me feel worse about the world. And I'm like, in a world where there's so much chaos and potential pessimism too, like, how do we keep being inspired by hope and positive, authentic messaging that also taps into like what is realistic? So to answer your question about what the role of optimism is in my life and how does that shape my daily life work. So I call myself a realistic optimist. I hope for the best. I expect what's going to happen. And this is where I try to marry the vision and like dreaming big with what is practical. Because if you just think like pie in the sky all the time, you're going to lose complete like sense of what is reality and what can be done. And then you just operate in theory. And then you're just thinking about like, we could just I'm totally making this up. Like, have cars that teleport us from like one city to another, and they'll be totally work and reduce our emissions. You're like, that's a cool vision and thought, like for sci-fi.
Yeah, I like
Um,
that.
really cool, right? But how feasible is it to build a car that does that right now, and also to have the funding to do that, right? So this is where maybe my founder's hat came into play, where I was like, you need to dream big as a founder, but you also need to be like, what are the steps to make it happen? And so for me, that realistic optimism keeps me in check to always say, like, hope for what's best and hope for the best in people. And also, if they like, don't do what I hope they do, I'm like, I don't get bummed out by it. It's like, it's okay. Like, they were just going to do that anyways, right?
Mhm.
So, by way of like shaping daily life and work, though, I've looked at it more from a point of what is aligned and not aligned. And that alignment piece is also really important with a sprinkle of like, how much do I know myself? So knowing myself, I know what I value. I know what brings me joy. I know what I'm good at. I also know what I'm not good at. And when opportunities align, then amazing. But let's say I'm interviewing for a job and I get rejected from the job. All that means to me is not so much I'm not good enough. It's just they probably found someone who's more aligned to what they needed for that role.
Yeah,
And
that's
similarly
that's a
for like,
good attitude. That's a really
yeah,
good.
thank you. And it makes it a less like personal of like a, "Oh my god, I got another rejection again," right? Like, "What am I doing wrong?" And those are great questions to ask, right? But from a constructive place. It's like, if I'm not meeting all the things that they're looking for this role, like, what could I improve on to get there? And that's a very different reframing of empowered mentality that says, like, this just wasn't aligned to me, but I also have full ownership and accountability to change that myself. And I know
Yeah.
that's really hard because
It is.
sometimes like sometimes you do have to feel the disappointment. And it's not this isn't to say that I don't feel disappointed if I don't get an opportunity or get rejected for an application or a writing submission, whatever it is. Rejection hurts. And it's okay to feel that disappointment, feel that sadness. Like you don't have to repress it. But also we don't have to let it take over. And we can
Mhm.
turn that energy into something that's positive for us and productive in a way that makes us better humans, both for ourselves and for each other.
Yeah, as someone who suffers from anxiety, and as I learn more about it, what you're able to do there with the rationale of, okay, they found someone more in line for the job, that is really hard to do because if something is going wrong, you can end up spiraling like, "Oh, I did another thing wrong. I am terrible at my job," or not a very successful person. So you end up having these moments of self-doubt and
Mhm.
hope goes away. So how did you get there? How were you able to become so good at doing that?
Well, that's a great question. Honest, like with my level of optimism and positivity, I will say right now that this did not come without work. The, and one of my favorite things to think about is like you can't have the light without the dark. And I feel like I've experienced that before. Like I know what rejection feels like. I know what it feels like to have heartbreak and all these different things. And sometimes I think of how in those moments of darkness when we experience those things, it makes me also appreciate and let go of the small stuff when like it comes by. Like so in terms of how you get to this place, oh, that's a great question. And I think too about your anxiety as well, right? Like all these different parts of ourselves that have negative limiting beliefs. Like I can't do this, like I'm not good enough. Like if I keep getting all these rejections, what's wrong? Like what's wrong with me? And that voice is a part of ourselves, right? It's a part of ourselves that's actually trying to protect what I would say is our inner child. Like somewhere when we were kids, we got rejected and it felt horrible. And so a version of
So
us
many
grew
times.
into our brain and said, rejection feels bad. I'm going to protect us from rejection forever, right? Or like different forms of anxiety. Like anxiety is a feeling that we have because it is an emotion that drives us to plan for the future. And sometimes I would argue there's a healthy level of anxiety because we can't get lost in the present. We have to still think about the future too. It's just keeping it in check from going too far and saying, like, don't talk to that person. You might look weird. And you're like, okay, I just won't talk to them. But maybe you just missed out on one of the best connections you could have made at an event or with a new friend that actually is like so deeply aligned with you. I think it's a practice of radical acceptance. So radical acceptance is you accept everything as is. Like this is fact. I got rejected from a job. They went with someone else. Like I didn't have the right skill or like experience. Those are all just facts, like, because there just wasn't an alignment. So instead of being like, why, just anchor everything immediately. And you're like, okay, given those facts, you know, they chose someone else. That means what it means for me is the job is no longer available. I may not have the skills and experience that they have. Accept that as is. Then you're like, what do I want to do about it? So this practice of radical acceptance, like anchors all the like spiraling that could happen, right? So that's my one like step number one. Radically accept what it is and then make a plan forward. And then I think the second, and I'm a huge fan of, I realize I'm a really big fan of cognitive behavioral therapy. And everything I speak from, by the way, comes from years, like years, decades at this point of mentors and coaches and even therapy and doing it both ways. I've
Mhm.
mentored and I've coached. So
Yeah.
that exploration is huge. So the other thing I would say or recommend as a tool is let's say your emotions are spiraling out of like check, right? You're like, I'm really sad. And then like, I just feel feelings. Write about it. Like anchor and get it out of your head. It's one of my best practices that I have. And whether you're journaling and just like free writing a stream of consciousness, by the way, stream of consciousness is a great tool. Write without judgment.
Yeah.
Like write anything that's in your head. And I promise you that that practice of writing and getting things out of your head is what you would do if you're meditating. You are like actually doing a mindful practice, taking yourself away from the experience and putting it in front of you. So
I never
whatever,
thought of it that way. That's so
oh,
smart.
yes. And it's like, oh, thank you. But I think one of the things I like to do, and I will even elaborate, 10 months ago, I got let go from my job.
Hmm.
And I felt so many feelings. You feel a lot of feelings when you have
Yeah.
disruptive events like that. And, anything with me sad, angry, frustrated, happy, excited, like it was just a roller coaster back and forth. And I actually started a Google Doc and I started writing the emotion when I felt it and the thought that was associated with it. So I said, like, so instead of just like repeating and going through cycles, I wrote sad. Sad because I can't solve the problem I want to solve anymore. Right. I didn't have the job in that space anymore. Frustrated. Like, why I don't understand why I got let go. Like, was there something in my in my capabilities? Was it like what was it? I still have no closure, right?
Mhm.
And also, by the way, the company no longer exists. So it's like I got let go and then it disappeared a month later.
It wasn't you
But
then.
it wasn't me. I guess
No.
it wasn't me, right? Like alignment, right? And I also felt joy. I was like, I
Mm.
get to write a book and I get to go travel with my mom and who just retired and get like really precious time with my mom. So I started to write the emotion and the thought. And eventually I started to build out this whole list of all the emotions and thoughts I was feeling. And I was able to see it for myself. And I was like, well, I don't need to feel sad anymore because I already called out this. I named the sadness, I named the thought. But I'm feeling a different sadness now. So what is this sadness about? Sadness is I don't get to see the coworkers I love anymore. Like they were so awesome. And I think getting as much out of your head into something that you can see in front of you frees your mind up from imagining processing, thinking in your head and puts it in another dimension that you can visualize, that you can anchor and ground with. I think that's been one of my most helpful tools in navigating change and unknown and stopping that spiraling.
I've been laid off twice, and you were able to compartmentalize what just happened to all these different emotions. Mine was, "Holy shit, how am I gonna pay my rent?" I think
Also an emotion,
okay,
fear. Now
good.
you're like fear. I was like, oh shit, like how long can I like do this for, right? How long
Yeah.
can I uh, what what rainy day fund did I save to
Mhm.
budget for this time? And I will say right now, as an advice to anyone listening, it's like they keep a rainy day fund in your budget, like
Yes.
managing your finances responsibly and not spending paycheck to paycheck. I cannot recommend it enough because I I went from a 3.5 years of being a founder and grad school student to 2 years of having a paycheck. In those 2 years, I saved up enough to give me enough time to breathe and write my book and create this time for myself that has been one of the most like joyful, recharging periods of my life.
Well, you said you got into the post-tragic stage of climate, in high school, and I'm guessing that you being in that post-tragic phase there helped you when you lost your job because you were already had gone through a lot of grieving and you knew you had to do something proactive and you had to do something that just pushed you forward with and not just lay in bed and cry. That I think I did that too, maybe.
I mean, I will tell you right now, when I got the call, I was in bed and like first thing in the morning, and I just like got the call, like, okay, thank you for letting me know. I hung up and I just went right back into bed. So, uh,
Perfect
so
reaction.
yeah, I was like, where's my comfy, happy place in bed right now? And, you know, actually on that note too, I didn't, something I also say when you're going to have difficult discussions, don't ever have it in your bedroom. Uh, uh,
Oh, really?
get it outside. And the reason I say that is because home has been a really central concept for me and safety at home and like psychological safety at home. Call about dark to light, right? Like I've experienced all those things, and I realized a few years ago, I actually created my home as my safe space. My bedroom is my safe, comfortable, happy space. I can't emphasize that enough to have clarity and a place you can go to where you can relax and truly relax. So ironically enough, I got this call about being laid off in bed. I was like, this is the worst place to do that because this is my safe
Yeah.
space. But what I mean by that is if you have to have difficult conversations, do it outside of your bedroom. Do it outside of like your home so that you can always If you have a difficult conversation, go back to your home and feel safe there. I'm really, I think it's so important to have that protection for yourself, especially when, again, we're getting tossed around everywhere with chaos and sad news.
We are.
So keep that home for you.
Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it. I felt that way my whole life, actually, about my house. It was safety, security. Of course, your parents are part of that, hopefully, or your brother, sister. So I don't think like I've been as good about that currently, thinking about my home as my safe space, like you just phrased it. So I think I'll have to start thinking that way
Ooh.
because, yeah, I don't, I don't watch the news at home for sure. Like that's,
Mm,
mm, especially
like
now.
don't watch the news in bed. Don't read the news before you go to sleep. Like keep that to be your unwinding space. Keep that like I would say like think about the thing that sparks joy or that you like that you reward yourself with to feel happy. And like do
Hmm.
that at home. Like, I like for me, I actually like my happy place is like being snuggled up in my down comforter and like putting it around my ear. Then like this is my safe space. And I fall asleep and
Awesome.
I like nest myself into bed. Like that's the level of like comfort you should have. And I feel like at this point, we should all be getting rest and good sleep.
Oh
That is
gosh.
so important for how we show up to create impact in this world. Like
Hmm.
I learned like in my 30s that 8 hours of sleep was what I needed to
Hmm.
actually feel alive as a human. And I was like, how did I ever go on with a day where I had 4 to 6 hours of sleep and think that that was like a good thing for me? And those
Yeah.
healthy habits pay off like in years and decades in our lives.
Yeah. I actually met with my trainer and I asked if one of our goals could be that I'm able to take a 10-minute nap every day. And she said, "That's a great goal. You should do that." And so I have been unable to survive without that 10-minute nap. It's
That's great though.
it's it's brought me back from the pit of despair. It's gotten me through exhaustion. And so that's a lesson I've learned too, is that you do need to rest.
Yeah. Like,
So,
listen to your body as, like, what are your needs right now?
mhm,
One of my f and I know we have other questions to cover, but one technique I love that my friend introduced to me is HALT, HALT. If you're in a mood, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely or tired?
oh my
Like,
gosh.
HALT. And so you're
I
like,
love it.
"Why am I, like, upset right now?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm just hungry. I just need an apple." Or like, "I should go get food so I'm not a terror to everyone." If you're angry, then put the phone down. Do
Oh,
not engage with other people. Don't engage on social media. Go take a walk. Like, and one of my favorite things to do is like walk in nature and like pay attention to the flowers. Like, how are they formed? Create some level of mindfulness back out of your head and like calm it down. Like,
mhm,
let yourself cool off. If you're lonely, maybe you're like missing connection with people and you're like, oh wow, I don't feel connected to anyone right now. Then like reach out to a friend. Like text someone like, hey, what are you up to? So simple. Like a simple text takes less than 5 seconds. And you can reach
yeah,
out to a bunch of friends at the same time. Like or like engage some way and somehow, like get outside, talk to someone. I know that that's easier for me as an extreme extrovert than maybe some introverts, but sometimes it's loneliness. And the fourth, which is maybe yours, is I'm tired. So go take a 10-minute nap. Like go take a
yes.
15-minute nap. Like, and I even say nap over caffeine because like napping
Mhm,
is what your body actually needs. It
yeah,
needs rest.
mhm.
So halt, which of the four is it? And also drink some water because we're probably underhydrated.
Just like in my first interview this season with Ann Therese Gennari, I was like, "I'm in a therapy session right now. Do I need to, like, pay my copay to you? Because this is super helpful." So, that's a great cult. Okay,
Mhm.
that's really
It's great
good.
too. It's like halt. And you're like, oh, which of the four am I? Such a simple term.
Well, we've been kinda dancing around the topic of your book. You've brought it up a few times, so I'm curious because actually I don't even know. Tell us about your book. What's it about, and when can we read this thing?
Thank you for asking. This book has been the source of my joy this sabbatical. And the premise is that all big positive change starts with one small step. And it follows along my journey of how I've answered the question, what is the biggest impact I can make in sustainability? And a lot of that actually is tied to my journey of knowing more about myself,
Mhm.
what I'm good at, what excites me, and my North Star, which has been climate.
Yeah.
And so the more you understand yourself, the more you can weather any sort of chaos and unknown. And I think my whole journey so far has been a class on how to manage the unknown constantly. When I first started a job in like my career in sustainability, there were only a few roles called sustainability managers, and that was at Google and Facebook. Like no sustainability managers didn't exist 15 years ago.
Mhm.
And I think charting that path for yourself and navigating the unknown in a way that looks at it not from fear and like, oh, is how this could go wrong, but from excitement and opportunity of what it could be is a much different reframing of what I hope readers can look towards as they finish this book. And I think I'll also add too, I like to say I marry the spiritual and the practical. Like I love like that deep spiritual work, but I also like to bring it back to like my professional life and how I can function as a human. And in this book too, I'll walk through some of the tools I've used in my career to better understand myself, from tools like mind mapping that I've used to
Right.
help with time management, project management. I think the tool that I have is like the personal resume to better understand yourself. And like in many ways will tell the story of my life, but also translate that into a section that readers can use to take that energy into understanding themselves more, to have them engage in community, and also hopefully do something about the climate crisis. And I think the last part of your question, right, is when can we read it?
When can we
So
read
when can we read it? So the plan is to finish this draft this year, hopefully sooner, and at least get that out. I'll probably go through some editing and publishing as well. I think it's an important message to share, especially now.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, if you want to get excerpts or little blurbs, I read on Substack and Medium, indifferent on which one
I
you
just
use, because
subscribed.
I'll
I just
amazing.
subscribed.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Where I read a lot about the topics that will be in this book, but also topics on personal and professional development, because I think that all this wisdom that I've gained from a village of mentors and coaches shouldn't just stick with me. Like I'd love to fast track that for everyone else to be like, you don't have to go through the big journey I just went on. Here's what you need to know. So excited to share more of that.
I wanted to jump into something that's connected to that, and it was in your I think you had an interview with Canary Media around climate action, and you talked a bit about imposter syndrome, and I think that's something that I mean, I know I have it. A lot of us have had it. Can you talk more about what you think about imposter syndrome and how that can get in the way of the climate action that we ourselves can do?
Absolutely. So with imposter syndrome, right? It's like feeling like I'm the imposter in the room, like I should not be in this room of very smart people.
Hmm.
Do I really know what I know? And that, is quite relatable to a lot of people. I think
Yes.
it's actually ever present in the majority of people. And ironically enough, it probably means you're more aware of how much you know so much that you're like, oh, there's things I don't know. But then we
Hmm.
over index on what I don't know versus the confidence of what I do. And I think imposter syndrome in the space of climate action can hold people back, right? If we have it, then maybe I'm thinking like my voice isn't super like really important and I'm going to keep quiet because they're smarter anyway, right? But I think that's going to hold us back so much if we don't have all the voices contributing
Yeah.
into this movement, into this action. And we need more voices, not fewer. So I think to counter that, and I have a few chapters in my book about this, finding my
Oh,
voice,
good.
amplifying it, developing it. Uh, and honestly, it's really hard because when I was first out of undergrad, I joined a team of very experienced people, like on the utility project development team at SunPower, where everyone was post grad or like had 5 to 10 years of experience. And I'm like fresh out of college by a year in this team thinking like, wow, they're incredibly smart and capable. Like, what do I have to add? And I would say the counter to that, like, how do you counter imposter syndrome? I would say is two things. One is a bit out of your control, but it is having like mentors and people who believe in you, championing you and cheering you on and telling you like you are worth it. And if
Mhm.
you're listening right now, I will say your voice is worth it. So I'm your audible champion right now. Like I really do believe that. Um, and everyone has a place. Like people who come in fresh have fresh eyes to everything more than somebody who's done this for like 15 to 30 years. And that balance and diversity of perspective is what we need to catch everything in the watch out to make a solution really great. And so maybe one of the things I'd say to combat this as a second piece of imposter syndrome is write down all the things you are good at. Like, and don't limit that to your professional self. Limit like, put everything you're good at. And so this is one of the tools I use, which is, like, I know how to develop a utility scale solar project. I know how to build relationships with just about anyone. I know how to dance multiple styles of dance. I love photography and I know how to use a
That
DSLR.
sounds
And
like
like
you
I
know how
always
to
say,
dance, right?
I know how to dance. But that's a thing though, it's like, I like, to counter those negative thoughts that are, there to protect you from being rejected, like, counter them with good thoughts about
Mm.
what you're good at, and then you'll walk away feeling less of the imposter syndrome and more like, "Okay, I have confidence that I know these certain things. I also know there are things I don't know." So, come with a balanced view of where you're at. Don't over-index on the negatives.
Yeah.
Also, don't over-index on the positive and think that you know everything either, because we really do not.
Mhm.
Come in as you are with your voice and like ready to contribute to the conversation.
Hmm. That sounds easy to do, but also I'm thinking it's not as easy probably in practice.
I actually I appreciate that comment because I'll tell you right now, I recently interviewed for a job that was like way, I thought like way out of my pay grade. And I was like, this is the way above my level. And the whole time I was like, I don't know how to understand how they're interviewing this for me right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, when I interviewed with them, I did not flinch when I gave them my answers.
Perfect.
I was like, this is what I do. I've done this, this, and this. I've built this partnership here and here and here, and made it to the second round interview too. And I was like, oh snap, that worked, And so my probability increased a little bit. And I will say, I still didn't get the job. And
Yeah.
again, talk about alignment, right? I was like, I also thought I was like, all right, I'm gonna give this my best shot.
Yeah.
And if it
Yeah.
turns out well, amazing. If not, I know that this is a little bit of a stretch, and that's okay. And so I did have imposter syndrome in that moment. I was like, "Oh, am I getting interviewed for this job?" And even though I would say, some might say, "Your imposter syndrome was correct. You're like, you were an imposter." I wouldn't say I'm an imposter either. I was like, I showed up as best as I can to communicate, like, my capabilities as best as I could. And if that wasn't enough, at least for this job, that's okay. There are probably other roles that are fit for my level, fit for the size of the company I wanna work for, or fit to the scope I wanna work on, and this just wasn't it.
Mm.
So, it's definitely hard. I totally acknowledge that. I had moments of self-doubt walking to those interviews. I was like,
Sure.
"What am I doing here?" And also at the same time, you just like, take 3 deep breaths,
You got to
like
go for it.
and you just, like, take 2 deep breaths, like, sit up tall, like, take up space, and maybe, like, "I am here because I'm supposed to be."
Yeah, I remember getting hired as a professor years ago going, "What?" Sitting in these, like, first meetings at the university, and there's a Guggenheim winner to my left and a Guggenheim winner to my right, and I'm thinking, "What am I doing here? How did I get this job?"
Well, also, if you are sitting next to these 2 Guggenheim winners,
Yeah, both of them.
that means you bring something special
Mm,
to be
thank
on
you.
their level too, right? I
Yeah.
had a moment where I was talking to my friends the other day. I was like, wow, I have like very smart friend. Like he's a genius. Like he's like really accomplished. And they're like, well, you're more also friends with them too, which means you're keeping up with them also in your own way. So maybe we'll look to our peers and be like, wow, they're so accomplished in those ways. And then I think the counter to that, Eric, was like, you're standing right there with them
Hmm.
too. Like,
Yeah.
you are accomplished in your own special way that got you to that professorship that they saw that, like, you needed to bring to the table. So even if you're not a Guggenheim winner, which is one level of or measure of accomplishment, like, you have everything that stood behind you
Wow.
to
Thank
carry
you.
the weight of your credibility.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping that some of that Guggenheim fairy dust would somehow get onto me, and it did not. But still, I love your perspective on that. It makes me feel better.
And then I will also say, being next to these Guggenheim winners, you're like, you are now in their company. Like, that's
Yeah.
such a great opportunity to learn.
I
And
know.
like, tell me about how you won that. Like, what did you work on? And right? Like you have access to these people who are all very smart. And
Yeah.
I really do believe that we are the average of the people we surround ourselves with. And how
Ooh.
important it is
Ooh,
to
I like that.
be,
I like
yeah,
that.
how important it is to surround yourself with people who inspire you and make you a better person and push you in a healthy way
Yes.
to like creating that positive change for yourself and others and community.
Well, speaking of positive change, we want to ensure on this program when you listen that you can walk away with a call to action, something actionable that you can do towards either climate action or bringing optimism into your life. Is there something that just one thing that you would suggest anyone listening that they could do today for any of those things?
Absolutely. This is my favorite call to action, actually.
Ooh.
So talk, connect, collaborate. Because when you talk to each other, you connect on ideas and different ways of thinking. When you connect on ideas, you can collaborate to effect much greater change than you would as an individual. And I really genuinely believes that if we do it alone, we're like, we can only get so far. When we do it together, like collaborations with you and myself, with
Mhm.
me and so many other people, like I've affected so much greater change than if I were just like hunker down, like brute force my way into like making it happen. And maybe this is my bias as someone who works in strategic partnerships, builds community. There is so much value that we can support each other in that's not just based on an exchange of money.
Yeah.
And I think an exchange of ideas and collaborating together is what really will unlock big material change.
So it's not as memorable as Halt, but it's still pretty good. TCC,
Talk, connect, collaborate.
talk, connect, collaborate. Okay. I like it. I like it. We're running out of time here, unfortunately. Coming to my very last question for you, and one that we're asking everyone about education. And a lot of us, including myself, are under the belief that the earlier we learn about ourselves and particularly now about what we can do when it comes to climate action and being optimistic and collaborating and communicating with others. What would be for you the most crucial climate topic or engagement area that you think some of our younger people should learn about more early on?
I love this question. I have a million different answers for it,
Oh my
but
gosh.
I will be a little more abstract in my answer because
Okay.
I think this will take a little more work, but I promise you it's so worth it. Understand how value moves in the world. So typically, value as we know it, or like currency is in money, right? Follow where the money is going, where the investment decisions, where policies creating new markets or getting rid of them. That's how you'll understand where the power is going or moving in society. So how much does it cost? How much does it save? who's going to profit from. That's the money value, right? But also, there are other forms of currency. There's social currency, which is trust and relationships, attention currency, what we focus on or amplify, knowledge currency, what ideas and insights we have, emotional currency, thorough care, like empathy and support, and of course, like time and energy. So there are other forms of currency that you hold in your like theoretical wallet, right? You have money, maybe your savings, but you also have friendships and relationships. You have
Yeah.
your attention span, what we want to guide it towards. And when you understand the currencies that you hold between these, right? Then you can ask yourself, what value do I bring when I bring my wallet of currencies, right? How do I want to spend it? How do I want to spend my attention? What do I want to focus to amplify with my friends? What emotional currency am I willing to spend with my close circle of people to support them? And also, what kind of world do I want to use my wallet of currencies to spend it toward to build? And if you look at this like wallet of different types of currencies and actually think of it from the value you bring, how you want to spend it, and the where you want to like what kind of world you want to build with it, it's a much different, much like more, I would say, grounded approach and approach also of control of yourself and your actions to actually create the world you want to see. And the last tidbit I'll add there too is that not everyone has equal access to these currencies, right? Like equity is actually a huge driver of everything I do. Like not everyone has access to the opportunities I do. So how do I create access with my wallet and my currencies to open doors for others? And so I know that is more abstract than like a focus on fossil fuel like extraction and where it's coming from. Learn about everything, of course. But if you learn this about yourself, very similar to our work in Climate Wisdom Fellowship, the more you are empowered from a ground perspective to actually put your time in the right place and put your efforts in places that have the most impact.
There was, I think you said social currency and then educational currency. There was something I learned early on here in academia, and the term was conversational currency. And I just wanted to throw that out to you in case maybe you want to add it to your list, maybe. But I think it might be it's just like a combination of both your social and educational currencies because it's really just like know a little about a lot of things and you can talk with anyone, really.
I have high conversational currency, and sometimes there's depth,
Yeah,
and
of
sometimes
course.
there's like, oh, I actually know someone here, and that's what I love that concept actually is like these aren't mutually exclusive either. They can
Yeah.
like come together and add more.
Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. This has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot. And just like in our fellowship, there was some vulnerable moments too. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Can I add one last thing?
You
I'm
can add one
hijacking
last, you
your
can
interview here. So when I say also make your voice be heard, uh, one, answer the survey. No one ever answers surveys. And so if you actually answer them and give people feedback, like people actually read those.
do that.
Yes. Yes. Imagine it. Like say you send a survey out for like 100 people, 5 usually answer it. If 5 people complain about the same thing, they're going to pay attention to the 5 because that's 100% of survey responses. On that note, voting is so important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, in between elections, call your representatives. Fivecalls.org is a really great website to
Great
look at
resource.
issues and also get access to know who your senators are. They make it so easy to call your senators. And then the fourth, I just learned the other day, is you can actually comment on federal policy on the federal website. And maybe I'll follow up with you on this.
Yeah.
But apparently, if things are changing in policy, you can add a public comment. And especially with how things are moving against environmental regulations, submitting public comment also requires someone on the defending side of changing regulations to answer it.
Oh,
And so
wow.
in the same way, you might want to like stagnate or slow down some of the environmental regulations that are being repealed, there are other ways to still take civic action in the
Great
meantime
advice.
here. So wanted
I
to
didn't
share
know
that
that.
tidbit. I
Yeah, I
didn't
didn't.
either. I
Yeah.
learned that 2 days ago.
I would just assume that they're like deleting them from there,
Exactly.
so they
And
don't
maybe,
have to respond. Right?
yeah, I have to look up this website. I apologize. I want to make this practical and useful, but I will look at the website and follow up with you on it. But that's where you can look up what laws are being changed right now from all
Oh
their different
wow,
agencies. Because there's due process for agencies to change regulation. And
there should be.
there is a way for us to slow repeals of certain things that would otherwise help with climate action right now.
That's new to me. I did not know that.
Yeah, me neither. Which is why it's always lovely to
That's
always
why you're
keep
here.
learning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why you're here.
always learning.
Well, again, thank you so much for being here. It was a wonderful time, and I look forward to reading your book.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on them too.
Thanks for listening. We want to hear from you. What did you take away from this discussion? Email us at climifypodcast@gmail.com or connect with us on Instagram at climifypodcast. We would love to read your inspirational stories on the show in upcoming episodes. This program is produced by Jackie Himmel, Bhavna Bhavani Shankar, and Adam Java. A big shout out to our new designer this season, Tyler Mayfield, and our social media strategist, Brianna Reggioni. Sound engineering and editing by me, Eric Benson. A special thanks to Mark O'Brien at The Climate Designers. You can find design prompts and more information on all of our guests this season at climatedesigners.org/edu/Climify and on Instagram and LinkedIn at Climify Podcast. If you enjoy the work we all do here and you have a spare minute or two, we would truly appreciate it if you left a rating and review over at Apple Podcasts. The more folks reviewing our program, the higher the algorithm pushes us up in the search results. And in turn, the more likely we all could learn how to become climate designers.